Okay, so I'm going to go over the rubric and the task instructions for the amino acids, peptide bonds, and protein structure assignment within task stream. This is number 208.5.2-01, 02, 04 through 07. You can see up here. This is the assignment about amino acids and protein structure and BSE, the bovine spongiform encephalopathy. So, you're provided with a short explanation, introduction about where BSE comes from, and then we delve into the task instructions. You're going to create a presentation, and you're going to tell some health workers in a country that does not have regulations on how to prevent BSE from spreading, why it's important they want to prevent BSE from spreading. So let's take a look at the rubric. First of all, you're going to make sure you meet the requirements for articulation of response and accuracy in mechanics. But let's look at the actual task instructions. So the first instruction is for you to describe the BSE at the molecular level. That's the protein level. What's happening to the proteins in BSE? Now, there are several questions at the end of the rubric about BSE, and it is totally okay for you to answer this question with those other BSE questions as well. But you do want to explain what's happening to the proteins in BSE. The next thing is a model of an essential amino acid with the side chain. So you're going to construct this model. You can make it out of items you have in the house, cereal, I don't know, crackers, noodles. Kind of go to your kitchen and see what you have. It doesn't have to be super fancy. It just has to be three-dimensional. And when I say three-dimensional, I mean made out of stuff in the kitchen or the garage or the toy box, whatever you have, really. The important thing is that you show all the atoms and all the bonds in your amino acid, and that you draw that your model is of an essential amino acid. So there are essential amino acids and non-essential amino acids. You want to make sure you choose an essential amino acid. Then you're going to provide some chemical characteristics of the amino acid you chose. These chemical characteristics are going to explain what happens to an amino acid when it's in a protein, what sort of special interactions the amino acid might have, that sort of stuff. Then you're going to provide a diagram or a series of diagrams that show the different levels of protein structure. Now, once again, this is a diagram that you're creating. You're going to draw it yourself, or you can make it on PowerPoint yourself or on the computer yourself, but you are creating it. Then you're going to provide a demonstration of how a peptide bond is made through dehydration, and then how a peptide bond is broken through hydrolysis. A relevant chemical equation is going to show what is present at the beginning of a reaction, an arrow, and then what's present at the end of the reaction. And dehydration and hydrolysis of the peptide bond is a specific type of dehydration and hydrolysis. So you want to make sure that your equation is showing how the peptide bond is made and broken, not just a generic dehydration and hydrolysis reaction. Then you're going to provide an explanation of the 4 forces that stabilize a protein's three-dimensional native structure. These 4 forces are the types of bonds that stabilize a protein's three-dimensional native structure. So then we're going to move into more questions about BSE. The first is an explanation of misfolding and aggregation in BSE. So what is misfolding? how is misfolding affecting BSE, and then what is aggregation and how does that affect BSE. Then an explanation of the role of prions. So what are prions? What are they doing that causes BSE? And then finally, an explanation of the role of the chaperone protein in BSE. So again, what is a chaperone protein? How does it play a role in BSE? So then the last content-based question is this recommendations question, where you're providing recommendations to this country that does not have recommendations in place on how they can decrease the risk of BSE infecting the food source. Now, it's okay for you to look to, say, the CDC website to see what the recommendations they have for preventing BSE infecting the food source in the U.S. But for your recommendations, you're talking to a country that doesn't have a CDC. So you want to make sure that you're not referring back to the CDC in your recommendations. And then last but not least is having references and in-text citations. And you'll just have a slide at the end of your presentation for your references. And then any reference on your reference list, you want to make sure you have an in-text citation in your presentation. So that includes an in-text citation for any diagrams that you may have found out about from another source. Remember, references are something that you use to give credit to who you learned the information from. It's not something you should use just because of quoting, which you shouldn't do anyway. You're going to say, I learned this information from this source by putting an in-text citation on the slide where you talk about that source and having a reference on the references slide.